Welcome, everybody. My name is Daniel Gunnarsson. I'm working at External Relations at Lund University in Sweden. So I can see we have a steady flow of attendees here, which is absolutely fantastic. So today, we're going to talk about student life at Lund University. And as you can see, I have a very nice group of student panelists with me here today that you will be offered to speak to, that you can ask questions to. So in order for you guys to be able to ask your questions, we have disabled the comment function here, so you can't have a chat directly. Instead, since we're using Zoom today, there's something called the questions and answers section here, Q&A. If you click on that button in the Zoom client, you can ask your questions, and you can write any type of questions here, and I will read them to the student panelists later on. So if you hear anything that you would like to know more about, you can just ask your questions in the Q&A section, and I will read it to the student panelists later on. But before we do that, I have been ordered by my lovely colleagues here to present a presentation about student life. So I will start by doing that. I will share my screen here, and hopefully this will work for you guys. And it seems to be working. So that's good. Wonderful. So student life at Lund University. So student life, I mean, obviously we have a lot of students and you will be able to ask more questions later, but student life consists of different parts. And one of the most important parts is the student nations. But before we start with that, I will also just tell you a little bit about today. So we will start with talking about student life in general, about sports and exercise, cultural activities at Lund and in Sweden in general, outdoors and nature, city life in Skåne, and then we will open the Q&A with our lovely students here today. So talking about student life, we can't talk about student life without mentioning the nations. And we get a lot of questions. That's the reason why we actually would like to highlight this before, because otherwise we get tons of questions about what's a nation, talking with the student panelists later on. But a student nation is basically a very large student social club here in Lund. They are welcoming to everyone. It's very inclusive. Anyone can join. We have 13 of these nations at Lund University, and they do a lot of different activities. One of the largest ones I would say is the lunches and the brunches, but also their pubs and the nightclubs. They also organize sports events and social events, cultural events. They do a little bit of everything. They also actually offer housing for their students. So Student Nations is very unique. It's something that you can find only at Lund University and Uppsala University in Sweden. And some of our nations are almost as old as our university. So they are 340 plus years old. So there's a lot of tradition when it comes to these organizations, which makes them very unique and very interesting. So how do you join? It's very easy to join. Once you're admitted to Lund University, you become a student, you can join any of the nations really, because the good thing is if you join one of the nations, you can actually participate in events at any nation. So you don't really need to be that picky. I mean, obviously you should go by the nation you feel is right for you, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, because you can join your friends that are parts of, members of another nation, that's perfectly fine. And all of these nations, they have their own buildings. Some of them have several buildings. Some of them also offer accommodation in their accommodation buildings. So they are spread all over Lund. And also one of the best ways for you guys coming in as international students, in order to build your new network and find new friends, one of the best ways to do that is basically to become a member of a nation and become an active member in the nation, which basically means that you will volunteer and work for the nation, and then you will meet a lot of people, both international and Swedish people, and that's a very good way to meet and make new friends. Besides the nations, we also have another large group of organizations, that's the student unions. So we actually have 8 student unions, that's 1 union per faculty, and these are more focused on the academic stuff, but they do a lot of other things as well. But they are basically part of making sure that your education is on par with the quality we would expect from us as a university. And also, when you're talking about student influence, that's very important at Lund University. I mean, we are not allowed to have any sort of deciding body, any sort of board where we make decisions that would influence basically anything within the university without having student representatives in those meetings. And that's usually student representatives that are selected by the student union. So if you find this interesting, you can join a union as well. I was part of the union myself when I was a student, and I loved it. It was really, really nice. Another thing that they do that's very good is like obviously they have welcome events, they have career fairs, and they also have wonderful balls. And that's I guess what we can see in the upper right corner here. That's from one of these like student balls. And a good thing about student influence as well is that if you become a member of a student union, if you're an active member, if you're selected to be sitting in a board, and let's say that the university vice chancellor is also part of that board, as a matter of fact, you have the same right to speak your mind. You both get one vote on that board. So the vice chancellor's vote is just 1 point, and so is the students, which makes it very fair and very democratic. So that's how we like it here at the university in Sweden in general. We have something else called the academic society. And we get a lot of questions about this, like what is the difference between the academic society and the nations and also the unions? But the academic society is more about like student culture and the student life. It's an organization that is run by and for students, and they would like to gather and basically broadening the cultural aspects of being a student in Sweden and in Lund. And they have a lot of different activities. That's everything from debate. They have interviews with high-profile people in Sweden and Scandinavia. They do have a radio station. They have student theater. They have lectures. They have art exhibitions. They do a lot of different things. So if you're into any of those type of activities, you're more than welcome to join the academic society here in Lund as well. And joining them is very simple. We get a lot of questions about this, but when I was a student back in the day, I'm a dinosaur now, a very long time ago I studied. But back then you actually had to select yourself. You had to go to not only your union, you also had to select your nation. And if you want to do anything else, you had to basically join them as well, which was a hassle. So I'm happy to say that nowadays the students only need one membership. They can join Student Lund membership and they get all free activities in one. So basically, if you join Student Lund, it gives you access to both the unions, the nations, and the academic society all at once. It makes it so much easier and way more convenient. So that's basically where you should start your process. You should look for the Student Lund logo and you will be fine. And besides the student unions, the nations, the academic society, there's also hundreds of student associations in this region. We even have a student associations fair. You can see part of it here, where when you arrive in Lund, and meet with a lot of different organizations that are looking for members or people that have similar interests. And this is where you can find them, and this is where you can sign up. All in one day, because this is very convenient as well. We try to gather all of them so you don't have to run to hundreds of different places. I mean, if you're into some sort of cultural aspect like theater, you might be able to meet several different theater societies here, and you can join the one you like the most. So it's a very good way of finding out what you can do once you become a student at Lund University. Sports and exercise, I mean, I'm Swedish. This is very important to Swedes in general. We actually like to move about, we like to train. And yeah, so in Lund, we have something called, well, Gärdehallen, just to mention, because they were basically on the picture here. That is apparently the largest gym in Sweden. They have the most members of all gyms in Sweden. It's a natural facility where you can train. Obviously, there are other gyms in Lund as well. There is at least 3 or 4 competing other companies that are running the same type of activities, but there are plenty of opportunities to keep fit and to do sports when in Lund. Sport activities can be organized by the student nations, by student associations. There's a lot of local sports clubs, like for basketball, for football, there's even rugby, there's ice hockey, there's a little bit of everything, like volleyball, and yeah, whatever you like, there will be a club that you can join, and you can basically take part in it as a student as well. And yeah, talking about cultural activities, I'm just rushing through here so you can actually ask questions to our students instead. There's a lot of things to do in Lund as well. So if you're talking about the students, we have the student associations that have something called like Specs, for instance, which is a like comedy theater kind of thing that's very unique to academia in Uppsala and Lund. And I'm not sure that our lovely student panelists have taken part of that, because it is very Swedish, and you either, I guess, love it or you hate it, or you're just indifferent. I'm a bit indifferent myself, but there are people in Sweden that love this, and they are basically focusing on taking courses at Lund University just to be able to be part of the specs, which is fantastic. I mean, if you're into that, that's perfect. Otherwise, I mean, there's also a lot of choirs, there's drama, there's music, even bands that you can join that are run by students. And if you're interested in studying here, you should know that we do have a few different campuses. We have one here in Lund, we have one in Helsingborg, and one in Malmö. It's not that far in between, so there's no need to be stressed about that, because in all of these facilities, you will find both local museums, music venues, there are cinemas, there are art galleries, there are theaters. I mean, there are major, well-working cities, all of these places, so you will be fine. Outdoor activities, that's another thing that's close to heart with like all Swedish people, at least all Swedish people I know. We actually like to be out in the outdoors. So around Lund, there's a plethora. There's a lot of different type of like jogging and cycling tracks and trails that you can follow. Within Lund and also within Helsingborg and Malmö, there's a lot of really nice city parks and also botanical gardens that you can basically stroll through, or you can even sit there and study if you're the type of person that actually likes to be outside while studying or reading. We also have a couple of beaches in nearby Malmö, Lomma, and I mean, if you study in Helsingborg, you basically have this beach right in Helsingborg, which is very convenient. There's also some really nice national parks down here in the southern parts of Sweden that's really close to Lund that you're more than welcome to visit while studying here. And hiking, diving, and rock climbing are fairly common activities in Sweden as well. So if you're into any of that, you will find a lot of things to do. And also traveling within Sweden is not that expensive. It's very convenient. So if you would like to see even what other other types of parks in Sweden, you can do that while being a student in Lund. And also some of the student organizations are organizing these type of trips to both like the far north of Sweden. I mean, we have a huge, vast country, but there are organizations that will be able to take you even to the north of Sweden to do hiking, for instance. So the city life in Skåne, what we see in front of us here, this is Malmö. It's the third largest city in Sweden. That's about 10 minutes by train from Lund. It's a nice city, and it's Swedish third largest city. So I mean, it's a bit bigger than Lund. Lund is a tiny medieval city, and Malmö is a bit more hectic. There's more of a pulse in Malmö than in Lund. And also we have a campus in Helsingborg that's about 30 minutes away by train. And it is, as a matter of fact, it is Sweden's fastest growing city. There's a lot of companies starting there. There's a lot of people moving into Helsingborg, and it's right by the sea. It's very pretty. And also, just to let you know, I mean, if you're considering studying in Sweden, if you're getting, well, admitted to Lund University, when you travel to Sweden, don't go to Stockholm, please. That takes hours on the train to get back to Lund, because Lund is very far south, and we're very close to the Danish capital of Copenhagen, which is a lovely city as well. So if you travel to Lund, focus on getting to Copenhagen instead, and then it's only 40 minutes by train to get to Lund. So it's very convenient if you would like to travel abroad as well. So I think that was it. I tried to rush through this really quickly so that we could have some time to talk with our lovely student panelists here today. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen here now. I just want to highlight once again that if you are interested in asking questions, you need to use a Q&A section here in Zoom. So just click on the Q&A button, and then you can write the question. The student panelists will do their very best to try and answer your questions. So with that being said, I have actually received quite a few questions, or we have received before this webinar. So I will start with one of the received by mail. But before that, I would like to hear a little bit from our student panelists who you are. So could you please introduce yourselves and tell us where you're from and what you're studying here at Lund University? And I will basically just start by giving the word to the student just in front of me here. So I'm sorry, Barbara, but your first name on the list. So Barbara, can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Hello, everybody. So my name is Barbara. I'm from Slovakia, and I'm currently studying the Master's in Media and Communication Studies here. Before that, I also studied the one-year master program in International Marketing and Brand Management. So this is actually like my second program in Lund, and I hope that I should be able to answer these questions for these reasons. So let's see.
Wonderful, thank you. And second name on my screen is Marie, please.
Hello, my name is Maria. I come from Costa Rica. I'm from the Mathematics Bachelor program. And as Barbara said, I hope that I can answer your questions about student life here at Lund.
Fantastic. And then I have Sevinj.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sevinj. I am from Azerbaijan. I study European Business Law here at Lund University. I'm also one of the Swedish Institute scholarship holders. I'm also very excited for your questions.
Perfect, thank you so much. And next one on my screen here is Shen.
Hi everyone, I'm Chen. I'm from China. I'm now studying the master program in GIS and remote sensing in the Department of Physical Geography. And I'm so glad to see you here. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last one, but not least, is Asisola.
Hello everyone, I'm Daniel as well. Hello. I'm Azizullah. That's all of my friends call me Aziz, so it's easy to say Aziz. I'm a master student here at Lund. I'm studying the second year of chemistry, and I'm so excited that I started my thesis. So I hope that I can help.
Fantastic, thank you all. I think I will try to get like students from a lot of different backgrounds here, a lot of different faculties, which is fantastic. And I can see there's a lot of questions coming in already, which is very, very lovely. But before I dive into that, I'm going to start with this question we received by email. So I would like to know from, well, not me personally, but students wanted to know, what is your favorite thing about studying at Lund, as well as, can you tell us something that surprised you when you arrived in Sweden? Anyone?
To be honest, everything surprised me about Sweden. Everything here is so different from back home. The one thing that I feel impressed me the most was the public transportation. It is just so efficient and you can get anywhere and it's so fast. It is also so safe to go out with your own bike, which is an amazing thing when you're a student and you're just running around this very small but beautiful city.
Thank you. And I can see Sabine, you wanted to say something as well.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I was also thinking about public transportation, but I'm quite happy because here, especially one of the questions that comes from prospective students on Unibody are that, do you need Swedish? But I mean, I have never needed Swedish. Of course, it's an asset if you want to learn, but everyone from children to older people can speak fluently. So I have never had any language barrier. I also love the public transportation, and everything is like, I think, are provided in like professionally, such as the transport. Even if there is a 1 minute of delay, you can directly see it on the app. And the surprised me, something that I can share, is that actually it didn't surprise, but there is an academic quarter. I think it is specifically for the EU universities mainly, because for example, we had a lecture around 11 a.m. and I was coming 15 minutes before, but I didn't know that there is an academic quarter for some lectures, that the classes started 15 minutes later in order to give students some time to reach the classrooms, I would say. So yeah, this is one of the things that surprised me about Sweden.
Fantastic. We have a question here actually from the students that are joining us today, and that is about accommodation. It's a question I actually don't really know, but there's an accommodation question here about the student nations. Are they pet friendly the student has a cat, and the cat is a priority, and I totally agree with that because I have a cat myself, so that's a very important part of my family. So, so do you know if you're living where do you live, and do you have pets? So Barbara, can you maybe answer this question? Yes.
Yes. So until recently, I lived in Kalmar Nation accommodation, and I think it was allowed to have a pet there. It's just required that you notify the foreman of the housing that you have a cat. But I know that one cat lived there with us. I think it actually belonged to the foreman who was in charge of the whole housing. So I think it should be possible, but it's not possible in all accommodations, of course. But in Kalmar Nation, it was possible, but it's always best to check directly with them to be sure. Yeah.
Wonderful. So I actually have a question here that is directed straight and directly to Marie. So greetings from Costa Rica. I have a question for Marie. How did you get the funding to stay at Lund University? Is there any kind of scholarship system? So maybe you should answer that question, Marie.
That is an awesome question. Hello. Yes, I was able to obtain the Lund Global Scholarship to study here. So that's how I managed my funding for tuition. And then my wonderful mother is providing me with the living costs to be here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. There's another question that I think is better for you guys to address as well. So is buying a bike expensive for an international student? I guess that depends on where you come from as well. I mean, it might differ a lot, like what is considered to be expensive. But maybe you have a take on that. Is it expensive to buy a bike? Sevinj?
Well, I think, of course, it depends, like for you, what does expensive means, but it is usually, I would say, around 60 or 70 euros. You can get a bike with a basket, which is convenient. Especially, I highly recommend to check marketplace, because there are always good second-hand bikes there, and you just try, you just meet, and maybe with cash or with transfer, I think it is convenient. And maybe you can find below 60 euros, and that can also be good, but this is the average price that I've heard from my friends.
Thank you so much. We have a question about accommodation. So we have a question here that how do you rent places as an international student? How do you find accommodation? Where should we be looking? And this also, I mean, it depends on what type of student you are. And I know that most of you guys know this perfectly well. So I will actually let you answer this one. So anyone who would like to start? Okay, so Aziz, please.
Well, actually, all the international students, I mean, non-European students, actually are guaranteed by Lund University to, like, so they will have accommodation reserved. So they have no worry about that. And it's like provided by Lund, different kind of accommodation provided by Lund. But European students actually needs to find themselves the accommodation, and there are some websites like AF Bostador, and like private houses. They can like also find for private houses on different websites. So international students have guarantee, so you don't need to worry about accommodation.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And for our European Union students that are arriving, basically, I mean, we do offer you accommodation in the way that we also provide you with information about how to apply for housing and everything. But the actual responsibility for a student coming from within the European Union would be, it's your responsibility to find accommodation. We will do our very best to help you to find something to build, but you will have to find that on your own. So you need to be a little bit on your toes and yeah, start looking early, but that's usually not a big problem. You will find somewhere to live. But as I said, like if you're a non-European student and you're required to pay tuition fees, there is a housing guarantee. So we will offer you accommodation. So you will be fine. There's no need to be worried. We have other questions here as well. Oh, they're jumping around a little bit because there's so many questions now. So this is a very good question that a lot of students usually ask us. And it's lovely to have you students here to be able to respond to this one. So Do you students, as students, think that having a job during your master study, is that realistic? And I guess time-wise, is it possible to have a job? Could you work part-time while studying at Lund University? Any takes on that?
Yes. I am so grateful because I actually got an opportunity to work with Daniel at the international office in the marketing and recruitment department here at Lund University. And I would say that you always have to prioritize your studies. And if you have a job as a student, especially within the university, they will make sure that your studies are a priority. Of course, the amount of hours that you work need to be balanced with your schoolwork. So of course you need to plan this out and you have to know your schedule pretty well. But I would say is an awesome chance.
Wonderful. And Sevinch, you also had something to say?
Yeah, what can I totally agree with Mary, and I'm also currently working in a law firm as part-time intern. And what I can say is that we usually, I think in most of the faculties, we usually have classes 2 or 3 times per week. So if you can really manage your studies effectively, that you you know which time you're gonna study. So I think this is quite manageable unless you have a super intense program. For example, actually law is one of the intense ones, but still I think it's quite manageable.
And does this, yes?
Well, I think it depends the program that you are admitted. For me, like as a chemist, it's I remember the first year that I mean my timetable was completely full. So for example, one day I started the experiment from 8 or 9 a.m. and it's like ends at 6 p.m. So you can't get the part-time job at the first, like at least I'm a little bit sure because it's very busy. It has a very busy schedule in chemistry. But the second year is you are more flexible. You will do your thesis, so you can like manage the time to get a part-time jobs. But for the first time, I think it's very, very, very difficult.
Yes, and Barbara?
Yeah, I just want to say that I agree with Azizola that it really depends on the program, because in my first program, in the one-year program, I felt like it was really intense, maybe because it was a one-year program and they tried to teach you as much as possible. It also depends on how important it is to you to have A's or like B's or really great grades. In that case, you may need to spend more time studying. But I did have some schoolmates who worked part-time, and I remember they were very stressed. And usually it's bad if you have a program where you do, where you do a lot of group work, and then the other members of the group are dependable on you, and it's not good if you don't have time to really devote to the group project because of your work. So it really depends, but it's not impossible. But yeah, I think everyone should at first try if they are doing well with their studies, and then start working if they see that they can do both.
Wonderful, thank you. There's a lot of questions coming in here, which is absolutely fantastic. I'm trying to just skim through them all. Here is one that I don't know if you can actually respond to this one. Maybe I need to basically answer it, but there's a question from a student here. How is the mental health support in the university for mental divergent students? So I don't know, I mean, I don't know for a fact if you have had any sort of like experience with like the mental health support structure at the university, or maybe you don't want to talk about it. That's perfectly fine as well. I mean, you don't have to. But I can see that Barbara.
Yes, there are some services that can help you with this. I think it's called the Lund University Student Health Center, and they offer short time therapy sessions. Even I think you can have a couple of sessions with a psychologist if you are having some acute difficulties with your mental health that are causing that you can't focus on your studies, for example. So there is definitely a lot of support in this area. Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. And Marie?
Yes. apart from the student health center, which I had an experience with, and it was amazing. I am so grateful for all the help that I got there. There's also the academic support center. And this is more like when you're struggling to build up a schedule or trying to find the balance on how you take up your courses and other things. And you get a lot of guidance there from a counselor that can help you up with the academic part of it.
Wonderful, thank you. And I can also mention that if you are someone that's going to apply to Lund University, if you have any sort of like clinical condition that where you know that you have some sort of like background with, it could be mental health, but it could also be physical, anything like that, as long as you're able to inform us like really in advance, so to speak, once you get admission to Lund University that you have these issues or you need special support of any kind, we will definitely do our very best to try to accommodate that. I mean, by law, we need to help students like that, and we are willing to do basically anything to try to accommodate that as well. So, I mean, for students that are in that situation, you're more than welcome to contact us as soon as you're admitted, and we will start processing that instantly. And we have professionals working at the university, like staff members at the university, that's only doing this. This is a main task, like finding different types of support for students. So just let us know, and we will do our very best to help. So moving on from that question, so yeah. We have a question here. I saw several of them before as well, and I know that we got them by email as well. But so you've been here for a while now in Sweden. So do any of you have any top tips? Like, how do you make friends in Sweden? I mean, Swedes. I mean, I'm a Swedish person. We are a bit weird, I know. So how do you make friends in Sweden? Do you have any top tips?
I would say give a chance to everyone, because you can learn so much from all the different cultures and different perspectives. Especially if you're living in a corridor, you'll have the chance of develop really tight relationships with the people who are the closest to you. So definitely just come with an open mind. I feel like everyone here is either going through the same thing, or the nationals, I always find that they're very kind. So just, it's okay. You will find your group, and people really are so kind.
Wonderful, thank you. And I see that Shane wants to say something as well, so please.
Yeah, I do agree with Mary. Like, first of all, you can apply for a corridor room for your accommodation, because like you live with so many students from other countries, also Sweden. So it's a very good chance for you like to talk with different students and make friends with them. And also it's a very good thing for you to notice the posters at Lund University or in your department. Sometimes you will find many like colorful activities of nations, or like held by Lund municipality. Like for me, last year I joined a language cafe where I can practice like Swedish or any kind of languages I want. On the table, I can talk with the people who maybe speak Swedish or English. Then I can learn a lot and make friends with them. So there are many activities you can. So don't be shy, especially for like Chinese students. Like, like there are a huge culture shock when I just arrived, but don't be shy. Just talk more and join more activities. That's good for you. Thank you.
That's a very good top tip, actually. And Sabine, do you want to say something as well?
Yeah, I just can add a very small information. Like, I highly recommend, because what I did, and it worked for me very well. Try to attend as many as orientation events you can, because like it lasts for 2 weeks and there are a bunch of events around, and you will meet a lot of people. I still have friends that I have met during the orientation event. So, and the thing is that you meet new people, but at the same time you learn from them. Like, they are going to some events, they're participating in some organizations, etc. And you gain all this information. And of course, the other the other advice would be that you mentioned in presentation, just nations, student unions, they organize really a lot of events.
Thank you so much. We have a more of a, like I guess like a question regarding how things are working in Sweden here. So and I don't actually know the answer to this one. I know that we've had some students asking this before, but it changes between different years. But the question is it easy to open a bank account as an international student? What was your experience? I guess this can differ quite a bit depending on where you're from and what you're studying and how long you will be in Sweden. So anyone who has a take on that, was it difficult to open a bank account for you? Aziz, please.
Well, actually, it depends on the country that you are coming from. If you are coming from, for example, like third developed countries, like more like countries that the situation, especially the economic situation, is not good. It's a little bit difficult to open a bank account. I saw some people from Iran. I have some friends from Iran that they couldn't like open a bank account at first, but like in one branch they couldn't, but they went to other bank, like to other banks, and then they ultimately could open a bank account. So everybody, I think, can do that. Just needs some like changing the branch of the bank or the bank sometimes.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, there are unfortunately sanctions towards certain countries and certain countries' bank systems. So, I mean, if you're from one of these countries, it will, for a fact, unfortunately, be very difficult to open bank accounts. But that's probably in every European country. That's a fact, unfortunately. But as you said, I also have the experience from students saying that they were able to open a bank account. They just needed to basically meet the right bank and the right person that knew how to do it. Because I mean, if you're from like any other country in the world, it's probably not a problem to open a bank account. But it depends. I mean, and maybe Marie can tell us more because you were doing the bachelor's. So yeah, you've been for a while now.
Yes. Well, when you're moving so far away, you're like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? How am I going to handle my money so far away? So even if you can open a bank account where you have your personal number or other things, I would recommend that you do some paperwork beforehand at your bank in your home country, that they would lift up the restrictions that they have for certain countries so you can use your cards internationally. I know that some banks back home, you need to tell them, I need you to allow me to use the cards outside. So just to be sure that until you get settled, you can use your own cards.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So we have a more cultural question here, actually, that I find very interesting. And I think that you can potentially answer this one really good. So the students, I keep hearing about the term fika. What is it exactly? I'm really curious. Let's see if you as international students can describe what fika is, because it's by heart for me. But what do you consider to be a fika?
What I say is that it's a very sincere gathering of your friends or maybe with your colleagues over tea or over coffee. Actually, it's very basic term, but in fact, it's very sincere for me personally. I use even this word for my friends in Azerbaijan. I do want to meet over fika. You just have some snacks, some sweets with tea or coffee or whatever you want to drink, and that's it. That's a Swedish culture.
Yeah, I think the simplest terms, it is basically like a gathering of friends. You're meeting over something sweet or something you eat, and you drink coffee or tea or something. So basically, it's a gathering among friends. However, a fika could also be a date, and I think that's where it could be a bit complicated for some. But I think we don't need to dive into that. You will figure out if it's a date or if it's just a normal fika. I mean, if it's with colleagues, it's a fika for sure. But we have other questions here as well that I really like. So, and see, oh, no, we just jumped again. So from your experience, like you were all getting into Lund University, and I mean, we don't usually talk about like eligibility questions or anything like that, but if you could get like a top tip when you made your applications, what would you say would basically influence your chances of getting into the program? So when you try to get into the master's program or the bachelor. So Marie, please go ahead.
I would say that the most important thing for me was to do it with a lot of time in advance, like to have all the paperwork that you need, because in some countries like my, bureaucracy is an actual issue. So maybe to get just one little piece of paper that would prove something that you need for your application, it might take 3 weeks or so. So I would highly recommend do things with time and make sure that you have everything, because if they need another document from you, then you would at least have the time to search for it.
Wonderful, thank you so much. So let's see here. So we have a question from the students here that wanted to know, I mean, you're all from different academic backgrounds, I guess. You did study at different universities, different parts of the world. So what would you say are like the biggest differences between like studying at Lund University? Like what is the academic culture like? Is it different or is it the same from what you were used from before? Any takes on that?
What I can say regarding Azerbaijan is that I was very used to have exams in 3 hours and you should be prepared beforehand a few weeks before, and then you forget everything after the exam. But here, this is something that I really like because it is more based on research. You have time, you submit your paper, you have time to do research and to go in depth to a particular topic. So you even specialize on that and you never forget what you did because it took your 1 month or 2 months to dive into that field. So I think this is the main difference. Like, it's not a student mindset. We are in the mindset sort of like a researcher rather than a student.
From my program, for example, I do have exams that last 5 hours. But what I think is that the academic culture is extremely different from what I was used to, in the sense of how I perceive myself in my learning process, that this is no longer a competition, that this is actually my way of obtaining this knowledge and just enjoying life at the same time as I study. So here in Sweden, you will have that work-life balance that we crave so much. And I think as a student, particularly here at Lund University, you have so many activities, as we mentioned, so you can take breaks as well from your studies, and that's okay.
Perfect, thank you so much. And I can see that Barbara wanted to say something as well. Oh, sorry.
I have also some tips, and in my opinion, the most important difference between Sweden and in my country is the independency and the dependency. Like here, students are educated in independent way. They need to do their stuff themselves. For example, for me as a chemist, I need to do the research myself. I need to learn the instrument myself. I don't need just to ask the professor, okay, how to work with this, how to work with this instrument, and how to write a paper, a report, something like this. But in my home country is students are more dependent to professors, to teachers, and also to their families. Yeah, I think this is the most important difference between Sweden and my country.
Thank you. And Barbara, now.
Yeah, so I have several points. First is that, and this is going to be different for every program or every faculty, I think, but in social sciences, we are really encouraged to think critically, even about the things that we are taught. So it's not this is something that is true, definitely, but it's more like you are invited to criticize maybe even the authors of the academic articles that you read. And I think that's very empowering and very interesting, and it may not be like this at every school. Also, what I like is that from my like Central European experience, we usually have like 4 or 5 courses at the same time, each of like 4 credits. But here I have 1 course worth of 15 credits for 2 months, or 2 courses at parallel the most. And it really allows you to dive into the topic, which is great. And I also, the third point is that I really like, I feel like the hierarchy between the teachers and the students, it's much flatter than in some other countries, maybe, where you see that the teacher is like a really high authority. And I feel like the teachers really respect you and see you as equals. And that's really nice as well.
Thank you very much. And Sheng, you want to say something as well?
Yeah, the biggest difference I found here is the retake exam policy here. Back in my country, the students, if they are not prepared for the final exam, they have the risk to fail the whole course. That's very bad. So like the students, they are busy with the final exam, they feel stressed. But here, if you feel like you are not prepared for that, or you found that you failed the first exam, then you have the chance to retake it. And usually we have this maybe 3 months later, like in the first section. So that's very good, the policy, I think, for like students. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I have a question here still related to like your applications, not about student life, but I think this could still be interesting if you would like to just, because it would be interesting for me as well to know actually. So there's a question about the application process. What did you consider to be the hardest part of the application? What did you struggle with? I mean, that would be interesting for me to know as well, if you could, if you remember, obviously, like, was there anything in specific that you found was really troublesome? Marie, please go ahead.
Yes, I think my issue was to be able to translate what the Swedish documents were, like specifically for a bachelor's program, your high school transcripts, how they're supposed to look, which subjects from high school in Sweden, how do I translate those to the ones back home? Because of course the curriculums are so different. So definitely searching for that translation of what is this and how do I get it from my own country was very challenging, and I have to admit that it was stressful, but everything worked out at the end.
Yeah, we're very happy to hear that and have you here in Lund, to be honest. And Sheng, what was your experience?
Well, maybe not the hardest, but the thing is that like applying for Lund University is quite different from like the other countries. Like especially here, for maybe for other countries, like you apply for this specific university, but here in Sweden, you apply like via the universityadmission.se.com, I think. Yeah, universityadmission.se, where you apply for all the programs in Sweden. So you cannot select, how do you say, you can select maximum four programs for masters, and you can select universities from maybe Uppsala or Lund or Stockholm, like this. So that's quite different. So when you first apply for the university, don't forget to, maybe if you want to apply for other university in Sweden too, you don't forget to add them also in your priority. That's the thing. Yeah, thank you.
No, thank you. And that's actually a very good and valid point. That's something that we try to push across as well when we're talking with students most of the time. Like, if you want to get into Lund, I mean, we're very popular. It's a very good university. We have thousands of applications every year. So one of the things we tell our students is, just like Shani said, you can apply to up to 4 different programs for the master's level. I think it's 15 on the bachelor's. And I mean, why not apply for another university as well? You might only like 2 or 3 programs here. Why not apply for another university in the same application as well? If you find a program that's interested at another university, that's perfectly fine. So I just want to highlight, if you do that, remember, if you want to get into Lund, since we are the most popular university in Sweden, you need to keep us as your like top priority, your number one priority, because otherwise you will have a very slim chance of getting in. But that's a very good tip otherwise. Yeah, just look for opportunities and options at other universities as well, because I mean, unfortunately, not all students that are applying will get in. That's just a fact. We have another question here as well about if international and Swedish speaking programs are separated in Lund, and if it's possible to study in Swedish in Lund as a foreign student if you have learned Swedish for a while. And here's this particular area study from the graphical information systems taught only in English. So basically, I mean, students can, if you're international, we don't care about the nationality, honestly. I mean, you can come from anywhere in the world. We don't actually care. We like to have students from all the world. That's why we're reaching out to you guys like this. But nationality is not anything that we take into consideration when we're making our well, acceptance or anything. Language, however, is. So, I mean, if you're an international student and you want to study an English language, well, in English language at the university, you need to either be, I mean, naturally born in a country where you got English language by birth and by your studies, or you need to take an international recognized test. And it's actually the same for Swedish. So even if you're international and if you're fluent in Swedish, there's a specific Swedish test you need to pass in order to be able to study in Swedish. It's called TISUS, and it's actually operated from Stockholm University. So TISUS, if you're interested, TISUS. And if you're able to pass that test with a passing grade, then you're allowed to study any program you would like in Swedish language instead. But I mean, even if you're studying Swedish programs in Sweden, like I studied a mix basically. I mean, I did the Swedish program, but we also had courses in English. So obviously Swedish students like me would meet our international students even within my Swedish program, because some of my courses, quite a few of them actually, I would say a majority, was actually in English language. So yeah. But that's about studying in Swedish. I just wanted to highlight that because I saw we had a few of those questions here. So we have other questions here as well. Oh, it's interesting. There's a lot of questions here about actually eligibility. So I just want to highlight that as well before I leave the word back to our lovely student panelists here. We are not going to answer questions about eligibility today, but if you have questions about like eligibility or really like about how to apply, you're more than welcome to reach out to us. At our webpage, there are different ways we can do this. One is through the web form, which is basically under contact us. Basically, go to like studies and then how to contact us and contact us that way. And usually, I mean, no one likes a web form. To be honest, I hate them myself when they're on the website. It's just, oh dear Lord, they don't really care. But the fact of the matter is that that web form is vital to us, because if you sign up at that web form and you send us your question, it is not like we're just storing it somewhere. It goes straight to our first line, which sometimes can be students, like the students you have in front of you here, that will look for the question. If they can answer it, they will. Otherwise, it will go to someone like me who's working as a marketing manager, or it will go straight to the program. And nowadays, before the application actually starts, I think you get an answer within a day for sure. So, I mean, we don't have a lot of questions at the moment. Obviously, we do have a lot of questions, but we can handle them at the moment. It will be more tricky the closer we get to like the application deadline. So just send us the questions. We will look into it and we will get back to you as soon as possible. So moving back to student life. Sorry about this. I would like to see here, because this is a question we got in the morning session as well. What was the biggest culture shock you experienced when you came to Sweden? Can you remember anything you thought like, dear Lord, like Swedes are insane? Is there anything like that that you remember top of mind?
I mean, I was only surprised that how Swedes love sweets this much. I was like, even when I tried Swedish meatballs for the first time, there was basically a jam. I don't know what is that in Swedish, but they usually serve it with blueberry jam.
Lingonberry.
Lingonberry jam. And I was like,
sauce.
how is it possible? Like meat and the jam? But now I like it because you really get used to it. And yeah, that was something like, it's not a cultural shock, but I was really surprised at how they like sweet this much.
I have to be honest, I love this answer because it's almost like it's scripted, because this is insane. I had the same webinar with similar questions this morning. That was the exact same response from a completely different girl from a completely different country. It was also about the Swedish meatballs and the lingonberry sauce. So apparently, guys, if you're coming to Sweden, we'll have to try it out, okay? Wonderful. Thank you so much. So there's a lot of questions here as well. Like, one question here is like, what is the most fun and exciting thing you've done since you come to Lund? These are very tricky questions to just grab top of mind, I know.
I mean, for me, there have been a lot of fun and interesting things, but I got very excited when we visited the Volvo factory and first IKEA shop in Gothenburg and in Sweden, and I was really impressed about how they prioritize sustainability even in the production process. So because Azerbaijan is not really into the recycling for recent years, so that's why I was very impressed, and yes, that was really cool for me. Like they, for example, in IKEA, they told like we are producing products that we can recycle afterwards easily, or maybe we can reproduct, we can increase the reproduction easily. So yeah, that was one of the most productive events, I would say, for me.
I know this sounds kind of corny, but to me, just going out on the street on this magnificent country is an adventure. Everything just looks so different from what I was used to. So just walking around, I saw the snow for the first time here. So I know that maybe sounds kind of lame, but just like seeing that like winter wonderland, the sauna, the beach is so cold. It's just so different from back home, from my very tropical country. So I feel like everything that you do here, trying the salty candy, which is not my favorite, I have to say, but just every little thing that you do, even going on fika, it feels like such a new thing in your life. How everything is done, the amount of things that you learn from people here is just so rewarding in so many ways. So I'm just so happy because the students that are here right now, we're all Lund student ambassadors, and we get to share so much about our cultures and who we are and all these things. And to me, every time that I talk to one of them, it just feels really like such a new thing because I get to learn so much.
Thank you so much. We have a very specific question here that I think might go straight to Sheng here. So with the program, the GIS program here, are there possibilities to meet other students or other type of activities in the campus, although the program is mostly online? So I don't know if your program is mostly online, Sheng, but I mean, there is definitely the GIS program that is online as well. I don't know if you could answer that question.
Well, yeah, there are actually two programs. One is like on campus, and the other one also called GIS, but not GIS and remote sensing. It's online courses. Unfortunately, I haven't seen anyone from that program, so maybe they are all taking courses online. So they are not going to Sweden. I'm not that sure, but if you are taking the on-campus program, you definitely have the chance to explore Lund, Skåne, or Sweden. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I can mention that. I mean, yes, so if you were to apply for the online program, it might be possible to get a residence permit in Sweden, but it's not entirely, I'm not entirely sure. It depends on a lot of different factors, actually. But I mean, I know for a fact that we have plenty of European Union citizens studying GIS online, but they're actually in Sweden. So I'd like to think that lately, the last couple of years, it has been quite tricky to get like a residence permit if you're studying completely online. So I would I would say that it might be possible to actually study here in Lund, but don't know for a fact if it is possible. I mean, for us, you would be most welcome to live and be here in Lund and start in all student activities, even if you're studying online. But it might be tricky to find a residence permit for that nowadays. To say. We have another question here from a student that is student related and also student life related in a way. They ask how much does it cost to live in Lund monthly? And I do understand this question because I mean, it is published on our website, like an average budget, but well, I don't know if you have total control of your finances, if you know, but what would you say would be like an average budget for a normal life in Lund for a month? I guess it differs quite a bit depending on like your tastes as well. Do you cook all your food?
I would say it depends on your lifestyle and the things that you do. But I would say the amount that is shown in the migration agency's website is pretty accurate to me.
That's really good to know. And also, Sheng, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I think like the monthly fee, I think for student, the most part is the accommodation, I think. Maybe around, but it depends on which kind of accommodation. Like for corridor rooms, it varies from 2,000 kroners to 6,000 kroners sometimes. And for studio or apartment, it sometimes from 3,000 to maybe 8,000. So it's just hard to decide. But you can say like around 4,000 or 5,000 is the most average student accommodation fee monthly. And for like daily life, for like eating, if you eat outside in the restaurant, it can be a bit expensive compared to like if you cook yourself. So that's hard to say. If you eat outside every day, it can be around maybe 200 to 300 kroners a day. Like, yeah. So, but if you cook yourself, it can be very cheap, like around 50 or 70 kroners a day. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have a lot of questions here, and we will never be able to answer all of them, sorry to say. Also, quite a few of them are questions about scholarships in general. So unfortunately, I don't think we will dive into scholarships in detail in this session because it will be more about like student life. But what I can tell you all is that if you want to apply for like, if you need a scholarship to apply to Sweden, which is perfectly understandable, I mean, it is expensive to study abroad. There are two main ways to apply for scholarships in Sweden. I can see that my head is now getting blocked by the sun here, which is lovely. At Lund University, we have the Lund University Global Scholarship, which Marie mentioned briefly before. We also have the Swedish Institute Scholarship, which is basically from the Swedish Institute, which Savinj mentioned as well. These are two of the major funding options for students when it comes to scholarships. So the Lund University Global Scholarship is completely run by us here at Lund University, and I was responsible for it for nearly 10 years, so I know quite a bit about it. It's a scholarship program that is completely merit-based. It's all about your merits. So, I mean, you need to have top grades, you need to be studying at well, I mean, we don't really care about the university, but you need to have top grade from, I would say, known university, at least, that we know that you have a good academic background in general. And the nomination for these scholarships was handling like the finances and made sure that everything was top tier when it came to the actual application. But the nominations will be handled by the program directors, which is basically the professors that are also teaching in the program, because they know the program and they know what would be considered to be a top talent student. So they select the students themselves. When it comes to the Swedish Institute Scholarship, that is actually better than our scholarship because we can only cover the tuition fee. The Swedish Institute will cover both the tuition fees and the living costs. And that's a fantastic scholarship, but it's only available to certain nationalities, certain countries in the world. And it's usually countries where Sweden has a long-lasting relationship in general, where we have like collaborations or aid or similar going on since long back. So if you're from one of these countries, you can apply for that one, and they will cover everything, like your living costs and also your actual tuition fee. The big difference there is also they need to see that you have work experience. So yeah, you need to have work experience. They also want you to be what they call like a future global leader. They need to see that you could be the type of person that would work in order to influence and change the world for the better, basically. And if you can get that all of that into one like motivation letter and be admitted to a good university like Lund University, for instance, you have some chance. I mean, there's a lot of applications, but there's a good chance that you could actually get the scholarship. And if we look at the statistics for the last couple of years, between 20 and 25% of all scholarship recipients in Sweden from the Swedish Institute, they are students at Lund University. And we have 30 different universities here, so it says a lot, not necessarily about us, but about our lovely students that you have in front of you here today. I mean, they're brilliant, they're really, really good. And that's why we have so many scholarship recipients from the Swedish Institute as well. So I just wanted to highlight that really quickly before moving on with the more student life related questions, because I can see there are so many questions about scholarships here, and we will not dive into that more deeply. There's no information on our website, and you can also email us about it. So now let's get back to the student life related questions. So we have a question here. What do you like to do in your free time outside of studies? So basically, I guess it's a question about what you can do in Sweden. So anyone having any unique or odd hobbies or just standard things as well? So Savinj, please.
Yeah, I really like volleyball, and especially in the accommodation that I'm living, we have a sand volleyball when the weather is nice. We are playing there, or we go to the Victoria Stadium. And also I play the piano. There are some beautiful spots in Lund where you can practice free of charge. Yeah.
That's really good. And you should have been in the first webinar, Savinj. We actually had a pianist there asking like, where can I play the piano? So maybe I will have to try to cipher out who that was and get you to get together. So Aziz, please go ahead.
Well, I think it's I do like some exercises at the gym near the Holland. I think it's essential, like doing sports in Lund when you are like traveling alone and living alone is essential for like, also you might get depressed if you like don't have any activity, and you will get a little bit fat as well. But it's I think it's essential. But I do like some physical exercises at Gerda Holland, and also at the weekend I go to surrounding places, and one of that is Whole Weekend, which is very, very interesting and very, very beautiful place.
Yeah, Whole Weekend is truly magnificent, actually. Marie, what do you do in your free time?
It is something that I feel like I adapted from the Swedish culture, which is just walking in nature. Back home is extremely hot to walk outside, but here you get to see so many different things. I feel the wildlife and the flora is so different, and there's just so many opportunities for you to go outside here, and you will find a nice lake or a nature reserve, and you also get the chance of the very important sunshine whenever we get it. So now I am committed to go outside and soak on the sunlight more.
Good advice. And I mean, yeah, I'm basically soaking in sunlight here for some reason at the moment. So we have a question here about, like, I would say, like, distances within Lund. So we have a question here about accommodation in Lund and how far away from the classrooms that would be, like, and how do you transport yourself between your accommodation and your classes? I think this is a very good question. I mean, first of all, we're not London, so I mean, we are a tiny city. So what is your experience? How do you transport yourself between classes? Cheng.
Oh, well, yeah, Lund is a small city, and I live in the, how do you say, very far away from the city center, but it's around 3 kilometers from the city center. In Eden, the LU accommodation, student accommodation. There is no direct bus line to my class, so I usually go a bit farther to the next station. Like takes me 6 minutes walk, and then I take a bus directly to the bus station near my near my faculty, then I walk for another maybe six minutes to my faculty. When the weather is very good, I sometimes walk directly back home, but it takes around 30 minutes. So like walking is not a very good way to here, like especially you live far away. But I have many friends who live in the city center or live close to the school. It usually takes them only 5 to 10 minutes to walk to school. So it depends on where's your faculty and where do you live. So, but Lund is I say like it's a small city, so it cannot be that long even if you take a bus, and the bus here is quite convenient. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. I have a question here, but I don't know if you're aware of this one, but I could answer it otherwise. Like, there's a question here. Is it true that Swedes go on a month-long holiday? It sounds like a dream. So, do Swedes take a month-long holiday every year? Do we have vacation for a month? And I can answer this. Yes, as a matter of fact, we do. Yes. So I mean, for instance, me, I do. I mean, I'm now starting to become a dinosaur, so I get more hours, well, more days of vacation every year. So I actually have 31 days of paid vacation every year, which is fantastic. So, and that's like working days. So, I mean, if you divide that by 5 working days per week, I can be away for 6 weeks every year paid. That's a really good thing, actually. It's something that if you're interested in living in Sweden and working in Sweden in the future, that could be like your main idea about actually applying to Sweden. It is a nice place to work and live. Also, I mean, we do have not maternity leave, we have parental leave. So even males can actually be at home with their kids, for instance. And you have 1.5 years that you can be away with your kids, taking care of your kids, which is absolutely amazing. So I spent myself 9 months at home with both my son and my daughter playing Lego and just socialized with them. And that was also fully paid. I mean, what can we say? That's actually, it is amazing. It's just fantastic. So moving on from that to more like student-related questions. And this is interesting as well. This one is absolutely completely new for me. Is smoking allowed in campus? Maybe we should rephrase that question. Is it common that people are smoking in Sweden? Anyone? Aziz, please. You're muted, unfortunately, Aziz. You need to unmute.
I'm sorry. Can you hear? Okay. I didn't see anybody at the lectures or at the corridor of the department smoking. It's forbidden completely, but outside I saw some actually students, doesn't matter, master, PhD or postdoc students, and also people who smokes, but totally I don't see like normally usually on the streets like people walking and smoking. It's less than like the people that's I mean it's less than the amounts of smoking in comparison to my country.
Thank you. I mean, yeah, I think in general, smoking is not that common in Sweden. I mean, I guess it was back in like the 60s and 70s, but since then it's been in like a very vast decline. You're not allowed to smoke in like restaurants and public places. You're not allowed to smoke inside at the university. You're not even allowed to smoke outside of designated areas, really. You're not allowed to smoke outside of buildings so that we can actually get the smoke inside where people might be working. So yeah, for long-term smokers, Sweden might not be the paradise, but for everyone else, it is fairly nice. But yeah, you're not allowed to smoke that anywhere, basically. I mean, where there are people moving about. So here's a quite interesting question as well. So for master's programs, this is more about applications again, but we have so many questions on this. But so basically, do you choose if you want to do a research or a course-based program? I don't know if you can answer that, or if we should just skip that actually. So basically, I mean, if you're making an application, it's tricky. I mean, these are like application-based questions. I would highly recommend you to basically send these questions by email instead, and we will focus on it. It's easier because I mean, it will take forever to answer these questions because there are bits and bobs where we need to pull in to give you the whole picture so that you can make an informed decision. So I highly recommend you to send these questions by email, and we will get back to you with way more information than we can in this session. So there's a few other questions here that I really like as well. So one question we also get a lot, not only from students, and I can see that we had a few of them here as well, and it's about safety and security. So like in Sweden and in Lund, do you feel safe and secure? Is it a safe place to study? I mean, what is your experience of studying here? Anyone who wants to start? Marie, please.
Yes, this is a very safe country overall, very safe city. I feel like as an individual living in this community, as part of someone who's inside this country, but also as a student in this university, you have different levels of safety. As a student, you have your own rights here. Also, on the outside, if you're wondering if it's dangerous to walk at night or these type of things, I would say not at all. It is something very different from a lot of us coming from certain regions of the world. But here I walk completely in peace and calm at any time. The one thing that I would recommend is that if you have a bike, please lock it. That's the one thing.
Yeah, that's definitely a top tip. I mean, we don't have a lot of violent crimes in Lund, but the most common crime is actually bike theft. And I guess it's drunk students stealing other friends' bikes. I'm not sure, but I assume it is. Aziz, please go ahead.
Well, yeah, I had a roommate from Germany, and we were talking about the safety, like compared to the safety of like I asked that how is the safety in Germany and how is in comparison with Sweden. I saw in experience that for a girl, for example, she can walk at any time on the street. There is no problem with that, especially at Lund. Lund, I think Lund city is one of the most safe country in the world. I'm sure about it. But she also told that the safety in Lund is so much higher than the city that I lived in, Germany. So yeah, totally to wrap up, it's like Lund city is a very safe city.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to hear that. And I can just vouch for the fact that like I'm training it late at night. I mean, I'm Swedish. I don't really have any problems out moving about. But I can say that, I mean, I see a lot of international students moving at any time of the night as well, out moving alone. And I mean, Lund is very safe in general. I mean, there's nothing to be worried about. But I mean, we also say like, use common sense. I mean, you can be unlucky anywhere in the world. So use common sense and you should be fine. And it's not like Lund has any dangerous areas. There's nothing like that here. We have another question here when you're talking about Lund. So in Lund, do cafes, food stores, restaurants open? Are they open in the evenings and also in the weekends? Like, is it easy? I guess it's like what's the cafe situation like in Lund? Barbara, please.
So like I have one maybe favorite cafe where I'm going to study, and I think it's open until 10 p.m., which I think is quite late. I'm not aware of there being any cafe that is open later than that, but maybe somebody else knows of that. But yeah, generally 10 is the latest that I saw. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think we have anything that's open way later than 10. But I think that a lot of the cafes are actually open even during the weekends and even on Sundays. Some of the most popular ones are definitely open on Sundays as well. But I usually have meetings with friends on Sundays, and that's never a problem. We can always find a cafe that's open. So we got a question here before, and I think you mentioned a little bit about what did the sustainability in Sweden like, and like with recycling. How was that for you? I know someone, I don't remember who mentioned it, like that recycling was a bit of a culture shock, but how do you experience that? Like, do you do the recycling?
Yeah, it was the one. It was me who was shocked about this fact. But I would say, in the beginning, it looked quite challenging for me because in Azerbaijan we have only two recycling options: paper mixed and plastic. And I was like, oh my God, should I keep all the trash in different boxes in my room? But now then I realized that in all accommodations you already have specific boxes, and which are really convenient. You just need to put paper into the paper box and the plastic into the plastic box. And there are some tricky ones. For example, there are some rules. For example, if the percentage of plastic is above from the specific percentage, then you should put it into plastic or something. There are some tricky rules, but you will get used to that. So I think it's pretty convenient that you are provided with all necessary facilities to do recycling effectively.
Wonderful, thank you so much. There are a lot of different types of bins, and I know in Sweden they're now actually increasing the number of bins in certain parts of the country in order to be even more efficient when it comes to like the recycling. And I know that's been a bit of a discussion because it's apparently quite complicated for the elderly people to, especially. I think that young people like you figure it out quite quickly, but for the elderly, it's starting to become a problem when you get like 10 plus different boxes you should sort your trash into. But it works at least. I mean, we do try to be sustainable. I mean, there's no such thing, I guess, like a fully sustainable society, but we do our best to reach that level. But I think we have quite a bit, well, this will take some time, that's for sure. We have another question here. Do you have any advice for how you can stick to a budget while in Sweden? What do you do to really try not to waste money while studying in Sweden?
So
Barbara, sorry. Yes, I did not see that you raised your hand. Sorry.
It's fine. I think that the first thing is you should know where to buy your groceries, because there can be significant differences in prices between the shops. I can recommend Lidl, is like one of the cheapest, I think. And then it's like these little strategies, like, you know, when stuff goes on sale, for example, the bread is cheaper in the evening. But maybe what makes the most impact on your budget, I think, is to cook and not be tempted to buy like food, like eat out. That's the most expensive thing, because the cost of labor is high in Sweden. So you really pay for the service of somebody cooked it for you, and it just gets so much more expensive. So yeah, I think that like having the strong will and resist the temptation to eat out very often is the ground for keeping budget, definitely.
Another great thing about budgeting, I would say, is taking advantage of the secondhand options that we have here, which is, I think, another trait of the Swedish culture. It's something that I very much enjoy, because you always get like this rush when you find something really cool for a very cheap price in the secondhand shop. So I would definitely recommend that for clothing or silverware, like anything that you need for your apartment or winter clothes. Yeah, you should check out the secondhand shops. They're amazing here.
I think that's actually, yeah, that might be something about the Scandinavian culture. We have a lot of secondhand shops everywhere. And it's also something that's starting to become a bit, can you say, like posh? Like even the really wealthy people are buying secondhand. That's really a nice thing to do. Like you don't want to just splurge out all your money on new goods. It's actually a quite nice and posh thing to do, to actually recycle and buy used. And I think that's a very good thing. I think that's good for the environment. And it's definitely a trend and a movement in Sweden that is really, really good. Talking about other things, like favorite things here in Sweden, and a question here from a student is, I guess that we are soon going to end this as well. This might be the perfect ending question as well. What is one of your favorite and also least favorite aspects of studying at Lund University? And I find this very interesting as well to know if you would like to tell us about what you really like and also a thing that you don't like. Sevinch, please.
Yep. Firstly, my favorite thing is that I'm coming from a capital city and Baku is very crowded, overpopulated already. And I was feeling like, okay, Lund is a small city. But now I discovered that I'm a small city person rather than a capital city person. So I like its coziness, and it's a small town, but beautiful and colorful. My least favorite thing, I don't know. I think it's not particularly about Lund, but maybe Sweden is one of the Nordic countries. So it's getting dark earlier than my country. So, but I have already learned how to handle with that. If you get enough vitamin D, if you're socialized with your friends, then you don't really, you're not affected with from the darkness. So I think this is something that was challenging for me during last year.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And as a Swede, I can tell you guys, even if you're a Swede and been living this your whole life, yes, the darkness it's a thing for sure. It influences us as well. But I think you're right. With D vitamin and also like spending more time with your friends helps tremendously. So Barbara, what's your favorite and least favorite thing?
I would say maybe generally it's like both at once, because I want to say that there is this aspect of the social science studies in Lund that it gets really theoretical. And I think it's great for people who are really interested in theories, who are considering an academic career maybe, or a career in research. But for some people, they come here and they realize that, oh, there is not enough practical things to balance it out. So this is something that some people might like and some people might not prefer. And for me, I really loved this theoretical perspective because I just enjoy studying society. But yeah, for some people, it's not, especially in my program, Media and Communication Studies, to speak more precisely. It's really about studying media rather than learning how to produce them, for example. So this is something that people should consider. Some of them might absolutely love it, and this could be the place for you if you want to do a PhD, for example. But you know, if you just want to work in praxis, there might be other places better for you, and everything's fine. Any way you feel is fine. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Maria, I can see you raise your hand as well.
Yes. Well, my favorite thing about studying in Lund is how I can constantly develop different skills, not only within my program, but also as a person and as a future professional. I feel like Lund gives you so many chances to just, as I was saying before, you just get to learn so much about so many things. You also get to share your knowledge and develop yourself in the process. And my least favorite thing is how long it takes me to go to my home country. 16 hours to get to home. So yeah, it is very far away. I think that's the one thing that I'm like, oh, it is really far if I want to go.
Well, thank you so much. That was lovely answers. And I mean, yeah, I mean, it's interesting hearing like both like the goods, like the pros and the cons. So I think that we should potentially just have one more thing here before we end. And that would be, do you have any like top tips for students that are looking into maybe studying at Lund University in the future? Do you have any top tips for them that you wish that you were aware of before you made your application? If you look back at yourself when making your application, what would you tell your, well, you're all young, but younger you before you made your application? Like, what would be the top tip? Aziz, please.
The top tip I think is for me is like, if I go back to the time that I wanted to apply, I saw that like there are some courses that I thought that is mandatory to take these courses to pass like these courses to get the master certificate. especially the initial courses. And the initial course was like a physical chemistry that is not so popular. I didn't know that we don't have like any chance to take another courses or the other thing. But when I came here, I found that you have lots of options. You can take courses from other universities in Sweden, Uppsala, Stockholm, and others. And also you can do you can like study as an exchange student. So for example, I might be like an exchange student in New Zealand next semester. So these kind of things, gathering information before like making application, and especially especially about your program, is very important, I think. And if I return back, I definitely search more about the options I will have during my master.
That's a good point. Very good point, actually. Thank you so much. And Barbara.
So my tip for the application process is, was that the question, by the way? Sorry.
It was, yes.
Yeah, because I wasn't sure.
What would you tell your younger you before you made your application? Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, because I wasn't sure anymore. So it would be to, especially again, speaking from my experience, we were supposed to write a letter of intent for both of my programs that I studied here. And I think it's really important to be genuine and show who you are and why you are a good match for that program. And I think that, everybody's going to try to make themselves look as good as possible and like bring out their merits. But I think it's about your uniqueness that is going to make you stand out from the crowd. And don't be afraid to show it. Don't be afraid to say what you're interested in and how this university can help you get there. That would be my advice.
It's a very sound and a very good advice, actually. A lot of students don't understand that. I mean, like a university like Lund is so popular, so we have so many applicants that the actual motivation letters, like a statement of purpose or whatever you would like to call letter of intent, that is actually used by us. We need that to figure out if the student would be a perfect match for that specific program. So yes, put some effort into that. That's really, really important. And yes, we would like to know who you are. I mean, we are very keen on knowing, because I mean, we want to have the best students and also the most motivated students here, because that helps tremendously. We would like to know what expectations you have so that we don't get like a mismatch between your expectations and the actual reality. That would be terrible. I mean, we don't want to trick students into coming here. We would like you to actually enjoy your time in Lund. And usually that's not a problem, I think. I think most students actually enjoy it here a lot. So with that being said, I just want to say thank you, first of all, to the student panelists. You've been doing a great job. Thank you so much. You're absolutely lovely and fantastic. But I would also like to say thank you to everyone that joined us today and listened in to this webinar. And I hope that you got at least some of your questions answered. I mean, there were so many questions. Like, there are so many questions here, which is just absolutely amazing. With that, I mean, yeah, we have some work to do. So basically, what I would like to say to all of you that did not get your questions answered here today is that just reach out to us. I mean, we are available. We're very devoted in actually trying to help you guys, because as I said, like, we would like to basically do some expectancy management as well, making sure that you are able to make the best possible decision so that you actually know what you're getting into before you make your application. So you're more than welcome to reach out, and you can do that through the web form on our website. If you don't want to talk with us, like I'm an employee at Lund University, obviously I'm not going to tell you that everything's horrible. I mean, that would be stupid, right? So if you want to reach out to our students, I know that I think most of you, all of you perhaps, are also like Unibuddy ambassadors, right? So
all of us, yeah.
All of us, yes, fantastic. So basically, we have you guys here today, but we also have plenty of others. So if you're a student that would like to ask a question, maybe like, if you're a girl from a certain part of the world and you would like to know what it's like to travel to Sweden as a lady from this country, you could reach out, because there might very much, well, it's very likely that we actually have a student from your region, from your part of the world, that could answer that question, because I couldn't. I mean, I'm born and raised here. I'm Swedish, I'm boring, but there are other students that can help you. So don't be afraid. Reach out to our Unibuddy ambassadors. And if you have questions about like how to make your application, about eligibility and stuff like that, reach out through the web form, and me and my friends and colleagues here will definitely try to help you as much as we can. And with that being said, I really genuinely hope that at least some of you guys here will make your application, that you will be admitted, and that we will get the opportunity to meet you here in Lund, and that you can join us, our clever community with students as well. So with that being said, thank you to all of you. And also I have a question here that I will answer immediately here as well. The next application phase, it opens in mid-October, okay? So mid-October, that's when we open the next application phase for autumn 2024. So mid-October, that's when you can start making your application, and the deadline will be mid-January, the 15th of January. So please reach out before that or during your application, and we will help you to the best of our abilities. So thank you for joining us today. Take care, good luck on your applications, and hope to see you in Lund. Bye.